One of them faked heart attacks for laughs for 5 years, and when the real one came, the whole room thought it was the bit. One danced in nightclubs with lit torches as the bronze goddess of fire before playing a Bible-swinging church lady. One was a wounded Vietnam veteran who walked away from Hollywood to become a minister. 54 years later, this is where all of them ended up. Long before he ever stepped foot into a television junkyard, the man who would become Fred Sanford was already a household name in American comedy. Born John Elroy Sanford on December 9, 1922, in St. Louis, Missouri, he spent decades carving out a career under the stage name Redd Foxx. When television finally came calling, he paid tribute to his family by naming his curmudgeonly character after his real-life older brother, Fred Glenn Sanford Jr. During the 1950s and 60s, Foxx built an underground empire. He recorded raw, uncensored comedy albums for labels like Laugh Records, which circulated through black neighborhoods and were sold under the counter in white-owned stores. While discographers still debate the exact count, reports suggest he released more than 50 of these wildly popular party records. When NBC launched Sanford and Son in 1972, the network merely repackaged and sanitized a brilliant, pre-existing adult persona for mainstream prime time. America fell in love with Fred's dramatic, chest-clutching fake heart attacks and his theatrical cry, "This is the big one, Elizabeth." Behind the scenes, Foxx married 4 times and raised 2 children, his biological son, John Foxx Jr., and an adopted daughter, Debraca Denise. Fred Sanford was a loud, theatrical junk dealer who performed helplessness whenever life cornered him. John Elroy Sanford was a pioneering comedian whose fame existed long before Fred entered the junkyard. On October 11, 1991, during a rehearsal for the CBS sitcom The Royal Family, the boundary between television fiction and real life permanently dissolved. Foxx collapsed on the Paramount Studios soundstage. Because he had spent decades clutching his chest for easy laughs, his castmates, including co-star Della Reese, and the production crew initially chuckled. They assumed he was performing his classic, theatrical heart attack routine. The laughter quickly turned to panic when they realized he was not getting up. Paramedics rushed Foxx to the Queen of Angels Hollywood Presbyterian Medical Center in Los Angeles. He had suffered a massive heart attack, and although popular myth suggests he died on the soundstage, doctors officially pronounced him dead at the hospital later that evening at the age of 68. Contemporary reports note that Eddie Murphy, who deeply admired the veteran comedian, stepped in to help the family cover the final funeral expenses, though official financial and estate records of this generous gesture remain unverified. Fred Sanford treated death as a theatrical escape route. Redd Foxx died in a moment when those around him initially mistook reality for one more performance. In June 1974, Redd Foxx walked off the set of Sanford and Son, launching a high-stakes battle over pay and profit participation. He reportedly demanded $25,000 per episode, a sum meant to match Carol O'Connor's landmark deal on All in the Family. While he eventually secured his raise, this early labor dispute was only a prelude to a much more devastating conflict with the government. On November 29, 1989, the Internal Revenue Service escalated their collection efforts from a simple tax lien, which merely secures the government's claim against property, to a full physical seizure. IRS agents raided Foxx's Las Vegas home, stripping it of his furniture, his classic vehicles, and even his personal belongings. The Los Angeles Times reported that the action stemmed from a federal tax lien totaling exactly $755,166.21. The agency took almost everything he owned. Contemporary accounts and trade reports suggest that a career which generated millions of dollars ultimately left Foxx with little to no money by the end of his life. Fred Sanford hustled, bargained, and complained his way through every crisis. John Elroy Sanford's labor and tax records show how easily cultural visibility could coexist with deep financial insecurity. Before he ever stepped onto the set as the frustrated son trying to keep his father in line, the actor playing Lamont Sanford had already faced real-world survival. Born Grady Dumond Wilson on October 13, 1946, in Valdosta, Georgia, he carried experiences far heavier than any sitcom script. From 1966 to 1968, he served in the U.S. Army during the height of the Vietnam War. Stationed with the 4th Infantry Division, he suffered a combat wound and reportedly received a Purple Heart, military details that require formal record confirmation, but nonetheless shaped his transition into adulthood years before he ever encountered the junkyard. By the early 1980s, Wilson chose to walk away from mainstream Hollywood. He focused his life on faith, writing devotional books and entering Christian ministry to work with former prison inmates. While official church and public records are still required to verify his reported AME ordination, this spiritual pivot defined his later decades. The question of his active preaching today rests on resolving recent reports of his passing in early 2026. Lamont was the son forever trying to pull his father back toward reason. DeMond Wilson built a life shaped first by military service and later by ministry and authorship, far beyond the junkyard argument. The fire that fueled Aunt Esther's legendary clashes with Fred Sanford was forged decades earlier in the heat of the nightclub circuit. While public databases often list her birth name as LaWanda Marlene Page, with a St. Louis origin, official union and legal documents reveal she was born Alberta Richmond on October 19, 1920, in Cleveland, Ohio. She relocated to St. Louis as a child, where she formed a lifelong friendship with Redd Foxx at age 15 before launching a daring solo nightclub act billed as the Bronze Goddess of Fire. On stages from Chicago to Los Angeles, she performed a hazardous routine of dancing with lit torches and swallowing live flames. When Fox championed her for the role of the pious Aunt Esther, network executives initially tried to remove her, prompting Fox's unconfirmed threat to walk off the show if she was fired. Her real-life professionalism stood in stark contrast to Esther's Bible-thumping, tongue-lashing hostility and her famous cry of "Watch it, sucka." Following the show, Page continued acting, maintained a quiet family life with her daughter, and passed away on September 14, 2002, in Los Angeles at age 81 due to complications from diabetes, despite some obituaries incorrectly citing October 3rd. Aunt Esther entered the junkyard like a storm, armed with scripture and insults. LaWanda Page had already spent years commanding dangerous stages before television made her famous. What was your favorite Fred Sanford moment? The fake heart attacks, the insults aimed at Aunt Esther, or Lamont hearing "You big dummy" one more time? Every date, paycheck, and cause of death in this script came from primary sources rather than recycled trivia. Subscribe now to join us as we uncover the true histories of classic television's greatest icons in this same deep, verified way. The sudden absence of the show's star in 1974 created an emergency that threatened to derail the entire production, but it also opened an unexpected opportunity for an actor who had spent decades on the stage. Whitman Mayo was born on November 15, 1930, in New York City. As Grady Wilson, Fred's easygoing friend, Mayo stepped forward to fill the leading role during Fox's 1974 walkout. While the exact production accounts of how this sudden shift kept the sitcom on the air remain unverified, Mayo became an overnight sensation. He eventually chose to leave Hollywood behind, moving to Clark Atlanta University to teach drama. University records support his work there from the late 1970s to the early 1990s, where he directed theatrical productions and mentored students. He was married to Melicia Mayo and fathered 3 children. On May 22, 2001, Mayo suffered a fatal heart attack at age 70 in Atlanta, Georgia, resolving conflicting news reports that incorrectly placed his death in Los Angeles on May 25th. Grady was the easygoing friend who wandered into Fred's chaos. Whitman Mayo used his experience to teach others how to build lives on stage. The cheerful, slow-witted sidekick who wandered into the Sanford junkyard had spent decades commandingly working the stage long before the cameras ever rolled. Donald Thomas Bexley was born on March 10, 1910, in Jamestown, Virginia. By the late 1950s, he had forged a tight bond with Redd Foxx on the Chitlin circuit, touring segregated comedy clubs where they shared both meals and bills. This decades-long kinship naturally translated to the screen when Bexley was cast as Bubba Bexley, Fred's grinning, fiercely loyal companion, appearing in exactly 20 episodes of the series. He later reprised the role in the short-lived spin-off The Sanford Arms and took small television guest spots, eventually transitioning into a quiet retirement defined by reduced public visibility rather than financial struggle. Authoritative records confirm he married, raised several children, and passed away from heart and kidney failure on April 15, 1997, in Hampton, Virginia, at the age of 87. Bubba was the smiling friend who made Fred's world feel larger. Don Bexley was a seasoned stage veteran who proved that a lifetime of laughter is best shared with old friends. Born Nathaniel Taylor on March 31, 1938, in St. Louis, Missouri, he was an actor whose true range went far beyond the single character that defined his public career. On Sanford and Son, he played Rollo Lawson, Lamont's streetwise hustling companion, a character the writers kept permanently frozen as shorthand for youthful mischief. Though the scripts never allowed Rollo to mature, Taylor's real-life career was far more diverse, spanning feature films and theater, even as his popular presence earned him a regular spot in the show's opening credits. Taylor later reflected on the double-edged sword of this success, sharing that while he loved the fans, the street-smart stereotype restricted his subsequent casting opportunities. He transitioned to guest roles in the 1980s before retiring to a quiet family life. On February 27, 2019, Taylor died of a heart attack in Los Angeles at the age of 80, resolving conflicting reports of a May passing at age 71. Rollo was the perpetually shady friend frozen at the edge of adulthood. Nathaniel Taylor was a working actor whose actual life could not be contained by that stereotype. While audiences knew him as the friendly next-door neighbor who kept a goat in his yard, Julio Fuentes represented only a single chapter in a remarkably diverse lifetime on stage and screen. Born Gregory Joseph Sierra on January 25, 1937, in Manhattan, New York City, he grew up in Spanish Harlem, a Puerto Rican heritage that proudly informed his work. Before television came calling, Sierra honed his craft in classical theater, touring with the National Shakespeare Company. In 1972, he joined the Junkyard as Julio, a warm Latino presence who broadened the Sanford social world across 3 seasons before his departure in 1975. Beyond the Junkyard, Sierra built a prolific career, co-starring as Detective Sergeant Chano Amengual on Barney Miller, appearing in the early episodes of Miami Vice, and maintaining a quiet family life through 3 marriages. After decades as one of Hollywood's most reliable character actors, Sierra died of stomach and liver cancer on January 4, 2021, in Laguna Woods, California, at the age of 83. Julio was the Puerto Rican neighbor who made the Sanford's world feel connected to a larger neighborhood. Gregory Sierra's longer career moved through documented roles and identities that no single neighbor could contain. In 1972, composer Quincy Jones wrote and recorded the funky, syncopated instrumental theme titled The Street Beater. Commissioned specifically by the producers after NBC greenlit the pilot, this brassy, harmonica-heavy track became instantly synonymous with the show's urban energy. The series itself grew out of a 1971 deal in which Norman Lear and Bud Yorkin secured the U.S. rights to the highly successful BBC television comedy Steptoe and Son. The early American episodes directly adapted those original British scripts, shifting the setting from a London scrapyard to South Central Los Angeles, while translating British working-class slang into authentic, sharp, African-American vernacular. The show's commercial dominance prompted several spin-offs, though none managed to replicate the original success. Whitman Mayo starred in Grady, which premiered on September 23, 1975, but was canceled after exactly 1 season of 13 episodes. In September 1977, Sanford Arms attempted to continue the franchise with the supporting cast, but without the presence of Redd Foxx. It, too, folded after 13 episodes due to low ratings. NBC tried one final time in June 1980 with the revival titled Sanford, which brought Fox back but was canceled after another run of 13 episodes. Despite these short-lived franchise extensions, the original series remains a milestone of television history. Building on the ground, broken by earlier shows like Julia, the immense commercial power of the Watts junk dealer proved that black-led comedy could attract a massive, diverse national audience, opening the doors of primetime television for Good Times, The Jeffersons, and the generations of black sitcoms that followed. Today, the actors who built this landmark series are remembered through a quiet, documented archive of resting places. Redd Foxx is interred at Inglewood Park Cemetery in Los Angeles, while LaWanda Page rests at Forest Lawn Memorial Park. Whitman Mayo is buried at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Don Bexley was laid to rest at Hampton National Cemetery in Virginia. Nathaniel Taylor lies at Westwood Village Memorial Park in Los Angeles. And Gregory Sierra is interred at Mount Washington Cemetery. The status of the surviving cast has shifted. Demond Wilson passed away from cancer on January 30th, 2026, at the age of 79, confirming the end of the principal living cast. Only 3 supporting players are confirmed alive today. Lynn Hamilton, who played Donna, is 96 years old, while the neighborhood police duo of Hal Williams and Howard Platt are both 87. Fred finally joined Elizabeth, and the junkyard went quiet, but the door they kicked open never closed again. Today, the laughter from that Watts junkyard still echoes, proving these artists did more than play caricatures, they permanently reshaped American culture. To honor them, we verified all dates, paychecks, and causes of death using primary sources, not recycled trivia. What is your favorite Fred Sanford moment? If you want more classic television covered in the same way, please subscribe.